Actions.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Looks like we're live, yes?
Perfect. We are live. Good to go.
Good to go. Yay. Good morning. It's morning here, so I'm going to say good morning. My name is Sandi Daly, and I'm a survivor of many, many years of abuse. And I've been out of that for many years as well. Something that really makes me crazy is a certain statistic that I'm doing what I can to help change it. And that is that I'm in the United States, and just in the United States right now, in this moment, 40 million women, just women. I'm not even talking about the men. There are male victims of domestic violence as well. Right now, though, there are 40 million women in domestic violence situations. And that's just the reported ones. So there's really no telling. I mean, my childhood was toxic and awful, and I'm not even going to go into that, but the childhood that I experienced trained me to believe that I was a worthless piece of shit, that I would never amount to anything, that I didn't matter because I was female, and that I was meant to be I was put on this planet for the purpose of being a victim. I was trained to believe that about myself. And so because I believed it about myself starting at a young age, that was how I lived my life, because I didn't know I could do it any other way. And so as a teenager and a young adult, I got involved with abusive men because I didn't know how not to, or how to choose something different. And because I believed that, I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated, everything. Basically, I hated my life. It was miserable. And during my young adulthood, I finally left that domestic violence life behind me at the age of 35. But up until that time, I was in abusive relationship after abusive relationship after abusive relationship. And in each of those, I'm pretty sure that I left each of those abusive men more than once, left and went back because I didn't know I could do it a different way. And I only went to the police 2 times in that whole time. So I'm one of the ones that didn't really report having that experience. I went to the police 2 times, and both times they treated me like it was my fault, and they had no interest. They had no interest in helping me, much less rescuing me. The first time I went to them, my boyfriend at the time had split my head open. With the back of my head was split open and bleeding when I walked into the police station, and they said, "What did you do to make him do that?" And that was not helpful. It's not helpful. I think that it would be a different situation nowadays. This was 1992, so long time ago. And then again, my last abuser, I left him a total of 10 times. And, one of those times I had left him and he stalked me, and he jumped out of the bushes at me and yanked 2 handfuls of my hair out in front of like 20 witnesses. And, the police said, having your hair pulling hair doesn't leave marks. which they didn't even look. They didn't even look to see the pieces of bare scalp that happened because he did that. So anyway, a lot of people don't report because that is how they're treated. And then there are there are lots and lots and lots of reasons that women don't report domestic violence. And I'm not here to convince anybody to start reporting to the police. I'm here to share my experience of figuring out that nobody's going to rescue me. I have to rescue myself if I want my life to be different. If I want my life to be different, I have to start doing my life differently. And the reason I was able to do that was the sixth time, I hate saying that, the sixth time that I was going back to him, my friend, a very good friend, had opened her home to me because she loves me, and she wanted me to be safe. And he did what he did, what he always did, and convinced me that I had no choice but to come. He threatened my children's lives. He knew where they were, and he threatened to kill them if I didn't come back. So what kind of mother am I if I don't go back to this man who's threatening my children? That was how I was looking at it. So as I was walking out of her house, she stopped me in the doorway and she said, "Sandi, get a backbone." And oh God, that hurt my feelings. It really hurt my feelings. I felt like she was making it all my fault. And, there's victim blaming and victim shaming and, re-victimizing the victim. I felt all of those things. And she said 3 words to me. And oh boy, did I beat myself over the head with them for days. I couldn't get those 3 words out of my mind. Get a backbone. Now I'm so grateful she said that to me, because my life never would have changed if she hadn't said that to me, and if I hadn't done what I did with the realizations that happened as a result. I would have died before the age of 40. There's no question about that. So she said, "Get a backbone." And I lived with the pain of that for the next probably 2 or 3 days. Like, a backbone? What? I mean, she had a domestic violence history herself. So she knew how hard it was to get away, and how awful it was to know you had to go back because you had no choice. She understood that. She knew all that. She was just frustrated with me because she had gotten out of it and I wasn't ready yet. And so she said that to me. And so for the next 2 or 3 days, I stewed in the juices of that. And at some point, it occurred to me to ask myself a question that I had never, ever asked before. And that was, what if I'm not as weak as I think I am? What if I'm not as powerless as I think I am? What if I don't have to believe him when he says I have no choice? What if I don't have to believe him when he says that no other, that he's the best choice I have? And so I started asking questions like that. What if I'm not as weak as I think I am? And that's so powerful. It was so powerful for me, because I began to be willing to see myself as something more than just a victim. And, so I started becoming a different person. Not noticeably, it wasn't noticeable to me or to him. And then, a couple weeks in, the honeymoon period is over and the abuse begins again. And I will never, ever forget this. He had me backed into a corner and he was wailing on my head, and I had my arms like this, just trying to protect my face. At that point, I had already had 3 surgeries on my face just to try to get it to work right. And So I'm protecting my face. And as he's hitting me, and it's so violent and chaotic, even in the midst of that violence and chaos, I heard this voice inside me say, stand up straight. It was quiet and calm, and it just, I'll never forget how it felt. Stand up straight. And inside myself, I didn't change my physical position. I may have physically stood up a little straighter. I don't know. But I know that inside myself, something happened, and I felt myself stand up straight, and he felt it too, and it wigged him out even worse than he already was. And but the result of me, following that direction, from, I call it the voice that loves me, instead of the one that beats me up and criticizes me. This is the voice that loves me and wants me to do well. And so I listened, and I stood up straight inside myself, and I stopped resisting him. I stopped giving him what he needed from me. He needed me to defend myself and to try to convince him that I wasn't this horrible person that he was telling me I was. He needed me to defend myself. And when I stood up straight, which to me, that is, I chose peace inside myself. I chose just a peaceful way of being on the inside, regardless of what was going on the outside. Was amazing. And so he flipped out and finished me off, for lack of a better way of saying it. And I never forgot how freeing just making that one little choice felt. I'm not obligated to defend myself against this person that can't be reasoned with. I don't have to react to him at all. And so I sort of basked in that for the next little while. I went back to him in mid-August of 1999. And, a couple weeks later, this incident happened, and I felt a different version of myself appear inside of me. And I started thinking, there's got to be a better way for me to live than this. There's got to be a better way for me to live than this. But there wasn't, I was 34 at the time. For 34 years, I had lived the life of just knowing that I'm a victim. And so here's this new thought. It's a thought that I had never thought before. And it was way far outside of the way I normally thought, in my everyday life. And there's got to be a better way for me to live than this. There was no part of me that believed that could be possible. But when I remember, it kept coming back, and that thought kept coming back, finally, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to believe that it's possible that there could be another way for me to do this, for me to do my life. And so I sort of stayed in that. It's called the open moment, just having the tiniest corner of your mind open to the possibility. And when you can do that, you start to see things differently around you. And it's, if you're willing, if you stay willing, then things come to you, things occur to you that are different, for the way of handling things. You get different ideas about how to respond instead of react, and that kind of thing. And so September 19th of 1999, it was a Sunday, it was 3:30 in the afternoon. I will never, ever, ever forget it. That is the day that my entire life changed. I came downstairs in our apartment. I turned on the TV. I was flipping through the channels, and I landed on Oregon Public Broadcasting, which, it's not usually my channel. But I landed on that channel just in time to hear this little tiny blonde woman say that we all deserve to have our dreams come true. And I was mad. Yeah, I was mad at Oregon Public Broadcasting for allowing a crazy person to be on, because what do you mean we all deserve to have our dreams come true? Obviously, you haven't lived my life. And you grew up on some mountainside where, and that was my attitude. And I wanted to change the channel, but I couldn't bring myself to, because she started saying things that I could hear, and beginning with 16 words, it was a 16-word quote from Lao Tzu, kitty cat. And he said, if you continue down the road you're on, you're going to end up where you're headed. And oh my God, when she said that, I heard it. And I saw exactly where I was headed if I continued down the road that I was on with this man who beat me up on a regular basis. If you continue down the road you're on, you're going to end up where you're headed. And I was headed either to a wheelchair or a graveyard. And I could see that clearly. And it brought me up. I sat up. I remember sitting up straight when she said that, because it really rocked my world. But then, that little voice inside, the not friendly one, took over and said, yeah, but I've tried making U-turns. U-turns don't work. I had already left him 6 times. I've tried making U-turns. U-turns don't work. They're just going to get me killed even sooner. It's too bad I'm going to die. I remember sinking back down into the couch. It's too bad I'm going to die this way. I'm just a victim. It's too bad I'm going to die this way. But then she gave me a visual, which I love to give to people because it's so powerful. She said, if you're going down the road and you don't like where you're headed, just make a little shift in direction. 10 degrees, 1 degree, fraction of it, just make a little shift in direction. And a mile down the road, you're in a whole new place. You're in a whole new place. And I saw what she meant. And my thought was, I could do that. And as she continued on, and there were so many things in that program that I could hear. I discovered that I really, really like quotes, and I use them as my tools for navigating, the grand adventure that I was living at that time, and that I've lived several times since, not in a domestic violence sense, but in other senses. She said so many things that really caught my attention. And at that point, I had given up on love. This man doesn't know how to love. He doesn't know how to love me. Why do I keep trying to get him to love me when I can see that he's really not capable of that? So, it's dangerous for me to leave. So instead of trying to get love to happen, I'm going to shoot for inner peace. I'm going to shoot for peace. I would just like 5 minutes of peace in my life. And something that she said, this lady her name is Mary Mannon Morrissey, and I adore her.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she kept talking. And one of the things that she said, it was a total life changer for me, was it was a quote from A Course in Miracles. And it's simply, I can choose peace instead of this. I can choose peace instead of this. I don't have to react. I don't have to respond. I can, but I can do it deliberately, purposefully, in the healthiest way I can figure out how to do it, or I can just not. I'm not obligated to react or respond to this person. And that is such a powerful thing to know. So I did the work I applied all of the things that she said in that program. Mainly, I can choose peace instead of this. And peace begins with me. My own peace begins with me. He's not responsible for my peace. I don't get to ask him to change so that I can feel better. It never works. Something that I figured out during that time, I asked him once, why are you such an asshole? And he said, I can't help it that I'm this way. I am this way because, well, I'm not going to say the words that he said. He had a way, my childhood was bad. His was worse. And so his response to me was, I can't help it that I'm this way. I am this way because of my childhood, paraphrased. And my thought was, you're not this way because of your childhood. You don't treat me this way because of your childhood. You treat me this way because this is how you're choosing to treat me. And then light bulb, big light bulb, fireworks went off. And I applied that to myself. I can remember people asking me throughout my adult life, why are you such a victim? Why are you such a victim? And my response was always, I can't help it that I am this way. I am this way because of my childhood. Same exact response as him. And I had to look at myself and say, wait a minute, you are not this way because of your childhood. You are the way you are right now because this is how you're choosing to be right now. And that was probably one of the most empowering realizations I've ever had, is that I can make a different choice. I do not have to choose to behave like a victim just because I was programmed to be a victim. I could change that. And I did that. I'm going to make those little shifts in direction. I'm going to choose peace instead of this. I'm going to choose peace. I'm going to choose peace. And I was terrible at choosing peace at first, because you're in it. He's accusing me of the horrible things and hitting me and hurting me and threatening me and harassing me at work. Oh my God. And so when I was in it, I couldn't choose. And so I didn't, for the first couple of weeks, I forgot every time. I forgot that I had decided I'm going to choose peace. And so the incident, the argument, whatever would happen, and I would beat myself up, a couple hours later, I would realize, wait a minute, I was going to choose peace. Shit, I really am a piece of shit. I can't even choose peace for, blah, 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 blah. So I would abuse myself inside my own mind, reinforcing all of the things that he had just said to me. And I realized that one day. And I can remember doing that. I was really wailing on myself inside my own mind. And my thought was, wait. So what if I didn't choose peace during that? I can choose peace instead of this. I can choose peace since I don't have to do this to myself. I can let what just happened be it was just what happened. It was what happened. And another thing that I realized during that time, that really came home to me. I used to do a lot of speaking in the prisons around the state of Arizona to perpetrators, to, people who used to treat men who treated their women that way and landed in prison. His behavior was never about me. It was not about me. It was about what was going on inside of him. It just happened to be directed at me. So I don't have to take it personally. I don't have to take it personally that he says those hateful, horrible things to me, because his behavior is not about me. It's only directed at me. And I don't have to take it on. And I lived that way to the best of my ability and I got better and better. I can choose peace instead of this was my main thing. I can choose peace. I don't have to go there with him. And for the next 9 months, I lived those things. And I ended up becoming the more empowered. I was the empowered person in the relationship, and he was just flipped out all the time. He was completely triggered all the time. He had no interest in changing, and he did not like the me that I was becoming. And so his behavior got worse. And by the time I left that 10th time for good, I knew I had to leave town. I had to leave town, or he was good. Because anyway, this is a very long story. I'm trimming it down as best I can. He got worse as I became more peaceful. The more peaceful I was, the more triggered he was, and he was going to kill me if I stayed. And everybody knew it. And so, but I can remember the last month that I was with him, really just standing in, look, thank you, universe. He's giving me another opportunity to practice getting really good at this. Thank you, universe, for this new opportunity to practice really just standing in my own peace. And he just, he never did accept that I became a different person, but I sure did. And so I ended up climbing on a Greyhound bus. And I went I'm here in Portland now. But I climbed on a bus here in Portland, and I went to Phoenix, knowing that I was going to be homeless when I got there. And that was a spectacular experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I learned so much about myself. And the point that I want to make in this interview is that voice that told me to stand up straight that first time, I have come to think of that. I call it the voice that loves me. I also call it my inner champion. This is my inner champion. One of the things that Mary said during that program, she was quoting Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, stand guard at the portal of your mind. And which means pay attention to what you're thinking. Pay attention to what you're thinking about things, because you get what you think about, whether you want it or not. If that's what you're focused on, you're going to see more of it. And so I really used those 9 months to practice paying attention to what I was paying attention to. And if I could see that what was going on in my mind was going to create something, not healthy for me, that inner champion part of me would stop it. Look at what you're doing to yourself is basically how the dialogue would go. Hello, what are you going to be creating if you choose to follow this line of thinking? If you go down this road, where are you going to end up? And I got really good at that. And so I ended up, I believe domestic violence is a dynamic. It takes two people, and I ended up changing that dynamic from the inside, from the victim side of the dynamic. And I became a woman who will never, ever be a victim of domestic violence again, because that's not who I am anymore. I'm not the person that I was thinking that I was during my growing up years and my young adulthood. I am a completely different person now. And, but activating the inner champion is the title. What happens when you activate your inner champion is the title of this talk. or this interview. And that's really what I want to make the focus of this, is that inner voice can either be my rescuer, my best friend, the voice that loves me, or I can go with the one that criticizes and thinks that, and is afraid. That's, that's where all that comes from, is I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what might happen if I try to live a bigger life. What if I get hurt? Well, what if you don't get hurt? What if you end up landing in the most spectacular life that you could have landed in? When I climbed up the steps of the bus, it was June 26th of 2000. And I was petrified. I was terrified, but I was still doing the work. Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Martin Luther King said that. And I was saying that to myself as I was walking up the steps of the bus. I don't have to know what's going to happen. I can just take this step with faith in, in myself and in the divine, and, in life, in the life that I would like to land in. And at that point in my life, I had no idea how to think big. I had no idea, how to, envision what I would like to happen. I was just trying to get away. At this point, I'm trying to get away. I just want to get away from this man who's going to kill me if I don't leave town. So I was doing my best as I was climbing up the steps. Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. And the life that I landed in, God, when I got off the bus in Phoenix, when it was 60 degrees Fahrenheit here when I got on the bus, and it was 110 there when I got off the bus, and it was suffocating, and I didn't like it, and I was scared, and the Greyhound station was my home for a little while, and when I got off the bus, I had a backpack and a duffel bag and $80 in my pocket. I had no job prospects, no place to live. I didn't know a soul in Arizona. And 21 days later, I had the best job I'd ever had in my life, making more money than I'd ever made in my life. I had money in my pocket. I had a place to live, and I had already met Rick, who is he's my husband. He was my friend from the second I met him, and he didn't want anything from me. He could tell that I didn't like Arizona, and that bothered him. So what he said to me was, "You're new to Arizona. Let me show you an Arizona you can love." That was pretty much the first thing he ever said to me. And he's just a sweet, wonderful, funny, entertaining man. And we've been together this whole time. And he's, but I couldn't have seen that. I wasn't, saying as I was climbing up the steps of the bus, I'm going to get there and I'm going to be homeless, and, all these wonderful, spectacular things are going to happen. And it's only going to take me 21 days to land in a whole new, I couldn't have known. I could not have known. I never could have orchestrated the way that all happened from my human perspective. And so I made a leap of faith, and I landed in a beautiful, amazing life. And if not for that inner champion that I was willing to engage, it never would have happened. So, and I want to share that. I want people to share that. So, I want to share that with people. So do you have any, I've been talking a lot. Do you have any questions?
What advice, what could someone do if they find themselves in a situation that you've described?
Well, there are many things. There are so many different ways to rescue yourself, you know, check into what services are available, you know, and I think the thing that I would say that I would recommend, the very first thing before you do anything else, is get in touch with that part of you that trusts life, and pay attention to what you're paying attention to. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about this that's making you feel a certain way, that makes you react a certain way? What is it that, so a question that I ask myself regularly still, what is it that I'm thinking about this that's making me feel this way? And what's a thought that feels better? Or what's a thought that's more constructive? Or what's a thought that's going to take me into a feeling of empowerment instead of a feeling of, oh my God, you know, what if something awful happens? You know, so get in touch with that. It takes practice. It takes practice to pay attention to what you're paying attention to, stand guard at the portal of your mind. It takes practice to remember to do that. And if you're willing to do it, and start living differently in the situation. So the bravest thing I ever did was stay, you know, and it served me very well. You know, in the way that I could, by the end, could say, thank you, universe, for all these grand opportunities to practice getting really good at this, at choosing my own thoughts and choosing peace. And, you know, I saw my dog butt, right? I saw my dog butt right there, completely knocked me off the track of what I was going to say.
Been there a while, but that's all good.
I just noticed him. My apologies for the dog butt.
Oh no, it's all good.
Yeah, makes me laugh. Anyway, so where was I? Choosing peace. You know, thank you, universe. He was my sacred friend. That is how I have come to look at that. You know, he was my sacred friend. He was serving me very well. You know, I wish that he knew what I was doing. He knew that I had watched that program. He knew that I bought the video of it and I was watching it over and over again. He knew that I was carrying her book around with me. I have it right here. It is right here where I can touch it. He had no interest in changing his beliefs about things. He had zero interest in that. And so his goal in life became messing with my peace. And I'm like, thanks, you know, thanks for, I did that with cigarette cravings as well. I used to be a very heavy smoker and I used the same tool, or practice. It was a practice, not a tool. When I quit smoking, thank you, craving, for giving me another opportunity to prove to myself that I'm more powerful than you. And that's how I finally quit smoking. So same thing with him. Thank you, sacred friend, for giving me exactly what I need in this moment, to practice being responsible for my own peace. And, you know, I'm looking at, I've been working on my website, and I'm also working on my 4th book right now. And the acknowledgements, I'm so proud of how this just came out. The acknowledgements says, so this is my acknowledgements in this new book. I would like to acknowledge all of the things, situations, circumstances, and relationships in my life that have sucked. Thank you. Without you and the pain that I experienced in my interactions with you, I never would have felt the desire to become the version of me that could overcome you. And that's really, that is a great statement about how I was able to do that. So the recommendation would be, who do you really want to be? Without all that pain, I never would have felt the desire to become the version of me that could overcome that pain. So decide that you would like to be a version of yourself that can overcome what you're living right now. And when you make that decision, you will, with an open mind, you will start to see different things will appear. Teachers like Mary, I mean, this is the book. It's still right here. This is my signed copy. The teachers that you need will appear. The practices, you might come across, you might see like a billboard on a city bus. I've had that happen. I'm struggling with something, struggling, and all of a sudden there's this bus with exactly what I need. Some 6-year-old said this, and something will click, and you will find a way to apply it in your life. And in the process of the application of it, standing strong, having the inner champion. This is what my inner champion looks like.
Oh, nice.
Once you start getting used to having a backbone, the new book I'm working on is called Get a Backbone. So just standing tall within yourself in the midst of whatever's going on. See, the thing about life and relationships and, circumstances, take the word circumstance apart. Circumstance, it just means that which stands around me. And it doesn't get any more neutral than that. Circumstances are neutral. They don't give a shit what I think about them or how I feel about them. They just are. They just are. I get to respond within them however I choose. And when I choose deliberately, I can know that I've chosen deliberately. And if it backfires or if something challenging happens as a result, then I will do the same thing with that. It's a circumstance. It doesn't care what I think about it. It doesn't care how I feel about it. It just is. How I respond within it is my choice. And as I, step by step, circumstance by circumstance, moment by moment, do those moments deliberately, and taking responsibility is what I do with my ability to respond. Your life will change. It will change. I don't necessarily recommend doing it the way I did it because I could have been killed. But I wasn't thinking that at the time because I already knew that I could be killed. So, if I get killed, I already was gonna get killed. Why not start doing this relationship differently from my side of the dynamic and behave like the version of myself that I would like to be? Pay attention to what I'm thinking. Who would I be if I wasn't thinking this thought? If I wasn't thinking this about him, who would I be being? Wayne Dyer used to quote Lao Tzu all the time. He said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
And it's not really that the things you're looking at changes, it's that your experience of those things changes. That was one of the quotes that Mary used in that program on TV. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I went to, what if I start looking at him differently? What if I be willing to, instead of seeing him as a hateful, awful, horrible man who just wants to cause me pain, what if I start looking at him differently? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. He did not change. I did deliberately start looking at him differently because I knew about his childhood. I knew what his childhood was like. I knew how painful it was for him. And I knew that he was stuck in it. So why not have compassion for this man instead of hate? I hated him for a long time because of the way he treated me. So why not start looking at him differently? And I did. He changed, he got worse. But my experience of him changed a lot because I really started looking at him as my sacred friend. Thank you. Thank you for giving me another opportunity to practice getting really good at this. This being choosing peace, no matter what he was doing. And knowing that what he was doing was never about me. It was not about me. It was about what was going on inside of him. He didn't know what to do with it inside of, how to deal with it in a healthy way. So he spewed it out at me. And there's nothing personal in that. That's not personal. That's about him. And so for the next 9 months, that's how I did it. And I do recommend it if you're willing to deal with somebody getting worse, because if you stop giving them what they need from you, they need you to be a victim. They literally, I am not, that is their biggest need, is for the person that they're abusing to react to them in a way that makes them feel powerful. Because inside themselves, they're not powerful at all. They feel powerless. And this is my opinion. This is my opinion. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or, I am a life mastery consultant, but that doesn't mean I understand all the, the psychology of this, but having experienced it with more than one person, and having witnessed other people treating their mates that way, they need that reaction. And if you stop giving them the reactions that they need, they're going to get triggered because they'll be all off balance. And did that answer your question?
Yeah. You said that you do life mastery. How can people find you, get hold of you?
My website is sandradaly.com.
Yeah.
So that's, you can get a hold of me through that, or you can email me at sandra@sandradaly.com. That's either way. You can get a hold of me either way. It's best to get a hold of me online.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. There's so much valuable insight, and it's interesting to see how you navigated your way out of a very complicated situation.
It was amazing. Thank you for that. It was spectacular. And something else, something that's available. It's just available on my website. I've written 3 books. The second book, it's called Pop Your Paradigm, and it's about what I just spoke about. And it's available as just free as a PDF download from my website. So it's a good book.
Yeah, if you send me the link, I can pop it below the video.
Okay, will do. So that's available there, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm firing up a program. Is it a program? It'll be an ongoing thing. It's called Everyday Uprising.
Nice.
And it's all about, stand up straight and own your shit and respond to the situation rather than reacting. And so that's, you can get to that through my website as well.
Fabulous.
So.
That's really useful. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your story and for sharing with us. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate being here. I love telling this story because it's so powerful, and I left so much out that's like, I had more time to actually dig into it. So that was just the surface. That was the surface
Yeah.
version of what happened.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was amazing. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Well, take care and I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care.